Some nights, courage is not loud. It doesn't announce itself through victories, applause, or grand decisions. It sits quietly inside you, waiting in moments when no one is watching, when doubt speaks louder than praise ever could. I used to believe courage meant stepping forward into the spotlight, proving something to the world. But over time, I began to notice a different kind of strength, the kind that shows itself when you choose not to explain yourself, when you carry questions no one else can see. Maybe you know that feeling. The moment when you wonder if anyone would understand the battles you fight silently. The truth is, I once saw a form of courage like that, and it changed the way I understand silence, people, and even myself. There was a period in my life when progress felt constant, visible, measurable. Conversations were filled with numbers, predictions, and expectations that stretched far beyond ordinary imagination. People often assume that when movement surrounds you, clarity follows naturally. Yet movement can sometimes blur the most important truths. During those years, I noticed something unusual. The loudest rooms were rarely where real courage lived. The loudest rooms often contained performance, reassurance, and carefully constructed confidence. Real courage, I discovered, appeared in smaller, quieter spaces. It appeared in people who listened longer than they spoke, who carried uncertainty without rushing to decorate it with certainty. Watching that kind of presence unsettled me at first, because it challenged everything I believed about strength and influence. I remember observing someone standing near the edge of a conversation, not ignored, but deliberately quiet. Others spoke with urgency, trying to prove competence or secure attention. That person simply remained present, absorbing every detail with a patience that felt almost unfamiliar. Later, when the room settled, they shared a single thought, gentle but unmistakably clear. It shifted the entire discussion without raising volume or claiming authority. That moment planted a question inside me. Why do we believe power must be loud to be real? The question lingered long after the meeting ended. It followed me through corridors of achievement and doubt alike, reminding me that noise and impact are not the same language. Even though we often treat them as if they are, for a long time, I believe silence was a weakness that needed correction. I filled empty spaces with explanations, data, or projections, hoping clarity would grow from constant expression. Yet the more I spoke, the more I sensed something missing, something quieter, and more honest waiting behind my own words. Silence began to feel less like absence and more like a mirror. It reflected fears I preferred to outrun, insecurities I disguised as productivity, and questions I avoided by staying busy. Facing that mirror required a different kind of courage, one that did not involve proving intelligence or capability, but accepting uncertainty without rushing to escape it. That realization arrived slowly, almost reluctantly, like understanding that forms after years of ignoring the same gentle signal. During one particularly demanding season, I noticed people around me searching constantly for validation, measuring themselves through recognition that never stayed long enough to satisfy them. I recognized that pattern because I carried it too. Success can become a moving horizon, always visible, never reachable. Watching others chase approval made me wonder how many of us confuse being seen with being understood. The difference is subtle but enormous. Being seen often requires performance. Being understood requires authenticity, and authenticity often grows quietly, away from audiences and expectations. I began observing courage not as action performed in public, but as alignment practiced in private. That shift felt uncomfortable, because it removed the protective distance between who I appeared to be and who I actually was. At times, I wondered whether silence was misunderstood because it forces reflection. When people cannot immediately hear your position, they begin to imagine it, sometimes projecting their own fears or expectations onto your quietness. That can be uncomfortable, even isolating. Yet within that isolation, I noticed something remarkable. Silence creates space for observation, and observation reveals truths performance cannot sustain. I started recognizing patterns in conversations, in decisions, even in relationships, noticing how urgency often disguises insecurity, while patience quietly signals confidence. The more I watched, the more I realized that courage is sometimes the willingness to be misinterpreted temporarily. trusting that authenticity does not need immediate approval to remain real or valuable. There were moments when that understanding challenged my identity. If courage could exist without recognition, then what was the purpose of constant achievement? That question unsettled me more than any external obstacle ever had. I began spending time reflecting instead of reacting, listening instead of persuading, allowing thoughts to unfold without forcing them into immediate conclusions. In that stillness, memories surfaced of people whose quiet resilience influenced me long before I noticed it. Teachers, colleagues, strangers, and friends who carried burdens with dignity rather than declaration. Their influence shaped decisions I once believed were entirely my own. Recognizing that humbled me, reminding me that courage is often shared silently between people, who may never fully realize how deeply they impact each other. One evening, while reflecting on those influences, I realized something that continues to shape how I understand strength. Courage is not always about changing the world through visible action. Sometimes it is about allowing the world to change you quietly through observation, patience, and restraint. That realization did not arrive with certainty, only with calm recognition. I began wondering how many acts of courage exist unnoticed, shaping lives in ways history never records. Perhaps you have experienced that too, offering strength without acknowledgement, choosing integrity when silence felt safer. I have learned that those unseen decisions carry extraordinary weight. And as I continue reflecting on what courage truly means, another question begins to emerge, one that reaches deeper into memory and time, asking not just why silence exists, but what it quietly protects. That question still waits patiently ahead now, sometimes. The questions that follow silence feel heavier than the silence itself. After realizing that courage can live quietly, I began noticing memories I had overlooked for years. They surfaced without warning, like distant lights appearing through fog, reminding me that strength often arrives disguised as endurance. I wondered how many people carry private battles that shape their character without leaving visible marks. That curiosity stayed with me, growing slowly, guiding my attention toward moments when people choose steadiness instead of reaction, when they hold their ground emotionally rather than verbally. Those moments, though easily missed, started teaching me quietly. I began remembering a time when someone close to me faced uncertainty. That would have pushed most people toward panic. Instead, they moved with careful patience, making small decisions that appeared insignificant individually but created stability over time. Watching them felt confusing because their approach lacked dramatic turning points. There was no single heroic action to celebrate, only consistent presence during difficulty. I noticed how others underestimated that quiet persistence, mistaking calm behavior for emotional distance. Yet I sensed a deeper resilience forming beneath their restraint, like roots growing unseen beneath soil, strengthening everything above without announcing their existence quietly. Observing that experience made me question my own instincts during pressure. I had often relied on speed, believing momentum protected progress from collapse. But speed can hide fragility. When decisions arrive too quickly, they sometimes carry fear disguised as confidence. I began reviewing moments where urgency shaped outcomes, wondering how many could have benefited from patience. That reflection revealed a pattern I had avoided recognizing. Many of my boldest choices were attempts to outrun uncertainty rather than understand it. Accepting that possibility felt uncomfortable, yet it introduced a quieter discipline, encouraging me to pause before reacting, allowing thoughts to settle. During that period of slower reflection, I noticed how people reveal their true priorities when they believe no one is evaluating them. In unguarded moments, subtle behaviors speak with honesty words rarely achieve. I watched conversations where individuals pretended agreement while their attention drifted elsewhere, and I saw others who listened with complete presence, offering quiet respect without seeking recognition. Those differences fascinated me because they reflected internal alignment rather than external pressure. I began realizing that courage sometimes involves maintaining authenticity even when imitation feels safer, even when mirroring others would attract approval faster than remaining grounded and personal. As these observations accumulated, I felt a growing tension between expectation and sincerity. People often admire decisive leadership, yet they rarely witness the hesitation that protects decisions from unnecessary harm. I began reflecting on how often hesitation is mislabeled as weakness when it may actually represent care, responsibility, and awareness of consequences. This thought reshaped how I evaluated my own delays. Instead of judging hesitation as failure, I started exploring whether it revealed emotional intelligence working quietly beneath urgency. That perspective allowed me to respect moments of uncertainty as preparation rather than avoidance, transforming doubt into a form of careful, yet embracing that quieter understanding brought new discomfort. When you begin valuing patience, you inevitably notice how frequently the world rewards immediacy. Recognition often favors visible action, not invisible reflection. I struggled internally with the fear that slowing down might cause opportunities to disappear. That fear felt deeply human, shaped by years of equating speed with relevance. I questioned whether calm observation could coexist with ambitious creation, or whether one required sacrificing the other. The answer did not arrive quickly. Instead, it unfolded gradually through experiences that revealed progress does not always accelerate when pushed, and sometimes flourishes only when one particular interaction reinforced that lesson unexpectedly. I watched someone receive criticism that questioned their competence and intentions simultaneously. The situation felt tense, almost demanding immediate defense. Instead of responding impulsively, they listened fully, allowing every concern to surface without interruption. Their stillness changed the atmosphere gradually, transforming confrontation into conversation. I realized how their restraint demonstrated respect not only for the other person, but for their own emotional stability. Witnessing that response made me reconsider the relationship between courage and reaction. Perhaps courage sometimes appears as emotional steadiness, holding clarity without letting external turbulence dictate internal direction quietly forward. That moment introduced another question that stayed with me longer than expected. If courage can transform conflict through calm presence, how many disagreements escalate simply because people fear appearing vulnerable? I began reflecting on how often we protect our image instead of protecting understanding. Image can be repaired quickly through explanation or defense, but understanding requires patience and humility. I noticed how rarely people choose humility when tension rises, perhaps because humility feels risky in environments that reward certainty. Yet observing its quiet power convinced me that humility does not weaken authority. It refines it, giving influence emotional credibility quietly. As I continued exploring these reflections, I recognized how courage often develops through witnessing others rather than through personal victories alone. Observing quiet strength created internal shifts that no achievement ever produced. It taught me that influence spreads invisibly, carried through behavior more than instruction. I wondered how many lives are shaped by moments people barely remember offering. That thought deepened my respect for everyday resilience, the kind expressed through consistency, kindness, and emotional reliability. Gradually, I began understanding that courage is rarely born in isolation. It grows through shared experiences, silent mentorship, and subtle examples that guide decisions long. Now, as these realizations settle into something resembling understanding, I find myself returning to the memory of the quiet courage that first altered my perception. I still wonder what allowed that person to remain steady when pressure encouraged reaction. Was it experience, emotional discipline, or simply a deeper relationship with fear itself? That question continues unfolding, revealing layers I have not fully explored. I sense that courage may have roots connected not only to silence, but to trust in timing, trust in self-awareness, and trust that certain truths emerge only when we allow them patience. And that realization leads. Trust is a quiet force, often forming long before we recognize its presence. As I continued reflecting on courage, I realized that trust may be the hidden structure supporting it. Not the kind of trust built through promises or reassurance, but the deeper version that develops when someone learns to remain steady inside uncertainty. I began wondering whether the courage I witnessed years ago was rooted in a relationship with fear that I had never fully understood. Fear, after all, is not always an enemy. Sometimes it behaves like a signal, guiding attention toward areas where growth demands patience rather than control. Recognizing that possibility changed how I began interpreting hesitation, silence, and restraint. For most of my early experiences with ambition, fear was treated as a problem requiring elimination. Progress was measured by how quickly obstacles were removed or bypassed. Yet as responsibilities expanded and expectations intensified, I noticed fear evolving into something more complex. It began appearing not only before risks, but also before meaningful choices. The larger the impact of a decision, the more quietly fear settled beside it, not obstructing movement, but asking whether clarity truly existed. At first, I resisted that presence, believing certainty should accompany leadership. Over time, however, I started recognizing that certainty can create blind spots when it replaces reflection entirely. There was a period when I faced a series of decisions that carried consequences, extending far beyond immediate outcomes. Each option promised progress while quietly containing unknown costs. I remember spending long evenings reviewing possibilities, searching for perfect answers that never arrived. The absence of certainty felt unsettling, almost threatening, because I had built my identity around solving problems efficiently. Yet during those nights of reflection, I noticed something unexpected. The longer I allowed uncertainty to remain, the more nuanced my understanding became. Fear began transforming from a barrier into a teacher, revealing dimensions of responsibility I would have ignored if answers appeared too quickly. Observing that transformation forced me to reconsider the nature of confidence. I once believed confidence meant removing doubt entirely, presenting decisions with unwavering clarity. But witnessing how doubt refined judgment reshaped that belief, I began seeing confidence as the ability to move forward while acknowledging incomplete knowledge, trusting preparation and awareness instead of demanding perfect foresight. That version of confidence felt quieter, less visible, yet strangely stronger. It allowed decisions to breathe, to develop through consideration rather than pressure. I wondered how often people confuse loud assurance with genuine stability, mistaking performance for understanding without recognizing the difference between them. During that time, I also noticed how relationships reveal our true relationship with trust. When people feel uncertain internally, they often search for external validation to compensate. I saw how conversations shifted when individuals sought agreement instead of insight, choosing comfort over growth. Reflecting on those patterns encouraged me to examine my own interactions. I began listening differently, noticing moments when I asked questions not to understand, but to confirm beliefs I already held. Accepting that habit required humility, but it also opened space for deeper connection. Trust, I realized, strengthens when curiosity replaces the need to appear correct or certain. One interaction from that period remains vivid in my memory. I spoke with someone who admitted they were afraid of disappointing people they respected. Their honesty felt disarming because it removed the protective distance most people maintain during professional conversations. Instead of presenting confidence, they revealed vulnerability without apology. That openness shifted the dynamic entirely, replacing competition with mutual understanding. I began recognizing how vulnerability, when expressed calmly, creates trust faster than authority alone ever could. Watching that exchange unfold taught me that courage sometimes involves revealing fear without allowing it to define identity or direction. As these insights deepened, I started noticing how trust develops gradually through consistent behavior rather than dramatic gestures. People often remember reliability more than brilliance, emotional steadiness more than occasional intensity. I reflected on individuals who influenced my thinking over time, recognizing that their greatest impact rarely involved advice or instruction. Instead, their presence communicated stability. They demonstrated how to remain grounded when outcomes remained uncertain, offering reassurance through behavior rather than words. Observing that pattern made me reconsider how influence truly spreads, suggesting that people absorb emotional cues silently long before they acknowledge them consciously. Still, embracing trust introduced another internal challenge. Trust requires accepting vulnerability to disappointment, uncertainty, and misunderstanding. For someone accustomed to building systems designed to minimize risk, That realization felt deeply uncomfortable. I questioned whether trusting processes, people, or even intuition could coexist with disciplined planning. The answer revealed itself slowly, through experiences showing that trust does not eliminate structure. It complements it. Structure creates direction, while trust allows adaptation when circumstances evolve beyond prediction. Together, they form balance, preventing rigidity from limiting growth or impulsiveness from disrupting stability entirely. As my understanding continued evolving, I noticed how trust also changes our perception of time. When trust exists, urgency softens, allowing decisions to develop naturally. Without trust, time feels compressed, forcing rushed conclusions driven by anxiety rather than clarity. I began observing how leaders who trust their preparation often communicate with calm patience, while those driven by insecurity communicate with urgency disguised as passion. Recognizing that difference helped me refine my own pacing, allowing conversations, strategies, and relationships to unfold without unnecessary pressure. That shift improved outcomes in ways I had not anticipated, strengthening collaboration quietly and consistently over time. Now, as I revisit the memory of that quiet courage that first changed my perception, I see how deeply it was connected to trust. Trust in timing, trust in observation, trust in emotional discipline. Yet one question continues unfolding beneath these reflections. If trust strengthens courage, what allows someone to trust themselves when the world around them demands constant proof, constant performance, constant explanation? That question feels heavier than the others because it reaches beyond behavior into identity itself. And as I continue exploring that question, I begin sensing that the answer may involve understanding silence not just as patience, but as protection for something deeply personal waiting quietly. Protection is rarely discussed. When people speak about silence, most conversations treat silence as avoidance, uncertainty, or emotional distance. Yet, as I continued reflecting on courage and trust, I began noticing how silence can function as a boundary, not a barrier against connection, but a shield that protects something still forming. Some ideas, emotions, and realizations require quiet environments to mature. Exposing them too early can distort them, much like revealing unfinished architecture before its foundation stabilizes. Recognizing that changed how I viewed my own restraint, transforming it from hesitation into intentional preservation of clarity and emotional integrity. I remember a time when expectations around me grew louder than my internal voice. Success has a way of attracting attention that feels supportive on the surface, but can become overwhelming beneath it. Advice arrives constantly, suggestions multiply, and perspectives compete for influence. During that period, I noticed how easily external noise can blur personal direction. I found myself responding to expectations instead of exploring intentions. That realization felt unsettling because it suggested that achievement, when surrounded by excessive attention, can quietly disconnect people from their own reasoning. Silence began appearing less like withdrawal and more like recalibration. Restoring alignment between internal purpose and external action, there was a moment when I deliberately stepped back from conversations that demanded immediate decisions. It was not because I lacked answers, but because I sensed those answers required deeper reflection. That pause confused some people. In environments shaped by speed, reflection can appear like uncertainty or reluctance. Yet during that quiet period, I discovered how powerful observation becomes when freed from pressure to perform. I began recognizing patterns and expectations, noticing how urgency often reflects fear of losing control rather than genuine necessity. That understanding strengthened my ability to distinguish between momentum that supports growth and momentum that simply prevents. Stillness itself became a teacher during that time. I started noticing how clarity often emerges after emotional reactions settle. When decisions are made during heightened tension, they frequently carry traces of that tension, influencing outcomes in subtle but lasting ways. Allowing space between reaction and response created unexpected depth in my thinking. It revealed perspectives I would have overlooked if I moved too quickly. This process felt unfamiliar at first, almost uncomfortable because it required trusting reflection over impulse. Yet the results gradually confirm that thoughtful patience often produces stronger, more sustainable outcomes than immediate certainty ever could. While exploring this quieter rhythm, I began observing how people relate to their own identities under pressure. Many individuals define themselves through productivity, achievements, or recognition. When those external markers fluctuate, their sense of self can feel unstable. I recognize fragments of that pattern within myself. There were times when I measured value through output rather than authenticity, believing consistency in performance guaranteed clarity and identity. Silence disrupted that belief by removing distractions that productivity often provides. In quiet moments, identity reveals itself through values, priorities, and emotional responses rather than through accomplishments alone, creating a deeper understanding of personal direction. During one reflective evening, I considered how often people feel compelled to explain themselves before they fully understand their own motivations. Explanation can become a form of reassurance, both for others and for ourselves. Yet explaining prematurely can distort truth, shaping it around expectations rather than authenticity. I realized how frequently I answered questions about intentions that were still evolving. Choosing silence in those moments began feeling less like withholding and more like protecting sincerity from being forced into premature definition. That shift allowed my decisions to emerge naturally, guided by clarity rather than by external interpretation or validation. This understanding also reshaped how I observed relationships. I noticed how meaningful connections often strengthen when individuals respect each other's quiet processes. Some people demand constant emotional accessibility, believing transparency requires immediate disclosure. Others understand that emotional clarity sometimes develops gradually, requiring patience and trust. The relationships that endured longest in my life shared one quality: mutual respect for personal reflection. They allowed space for silence without interpreting it as distance or rejection. That realization deepened my appreciation for people who listen without urgency, who recognize that understanding often unfolds through presence rather than interrogation or expectation. As these insights deepened, I began reflecting on how society frequently celebrates visibility while underestimating introspection. Visibility offers recognition and influence, but introspection offers sustainability and authenticity. Without introspection, visibility can create identities shaped by external approval rather than internal conviction. I started noticing how individuals who balance visibility with introspection tend to navigate challenges with greater stability. Their decisions reflect alignment rather than reaction, demonstrating confidence that does not require constant affirmation. Observing that balance encouraged me to cultivate private reflection intentionally, treating silence as an essential part of clarity, rather than as an absence of productivity. Yet even as I embraced silence as protection, I sensed another layer forming beneath it. Protection often implies vulnerability exists somewhere inside it, something meaningful enough to guard carefully. I began wondering what aspects of identity require such quiet preservation. Was it authenticity, emotional honesty, or perhaps a deeper understanding of purpose itself? That question stayed with me, expanding gradually as I revisited memories of people whose quiet resilience influenced my thinking. Their silence never felt empty. It felt deliberate, almost sacred, as if they were protecting insights that required time to mature before being shared openly or confidently. Now, as I continue tracing these reflections, I realize silence is not simply about withholding words. It is about allowing truth to develop without interference, protecting sincerity until it becomes strong enough to exist openly. But this realization introduces another question that feels even more personal. If silence protects authenticity, what happens when authenticity begins asking to be expressed? When the truths we guarded patiently begin seeking their own voice? That moment feels delicate, almost transformative, because it requires balancing protection with expression. And as I consider that transition, I begin sensing that courage may not end with silence at all, but instead begins preparing for what follows afterward. There comes a moment when silence no longer feels like shelter. It begins to feel like a doorway. Not one that demands immediate passage, but one that quietly reminds you that protection and expression eventually meet. As I reflected on the role silence played in shaping clarity and authenticity, I started noticing subtle changes within myself. Thoughts I once guarded carefully began forming a quiet confidence, as if they had matured enough to exist beyond private reflection. That transition felt delicate, almost uncertain, because expressing truth carries its own form of vulnerability. Protection feels safe because it preserves possibility. Expression feels risky because it transforms possibility into reality, where misunderstanding and judgment can exist alongside understanding and connection. I remember a period when I sensed that shift approaching. Conversations began presenting opportunities to share perspectives I had previously kept internal. At first, I hesitated, questioning whether those thoughts were ready to exist outside reflection. Yet I also recognized a quiet tension growing between what I understood internally and what I communicated externally. That tension revealed something important. Authenticity cannot remain permanently protected without eventually becoming constrained. Truth, when held too tightly, can lose its vitality. It requires expression to remain alive, even though expression introduces uncertainty. Accepting that balance between protection and vulnerability became one of the most challenging transitions I encountered during this phase. I began observing how people respond when authenticity enters conversations gently but unmistakably. Some responded with relief, as if honesty created permission for their own vulnerability. Others reacted with discomfort, possibly because authenticity disrupts expectations built around performance or certainty. Watching those responses taught me that truth carries influence regardless of reaction. It does not require universal acceptance to remain valuable. That realization strengthened my willingness to speak thoughtfully, not to persuade or impress, but to align external expression with internal clarity. Expression became less about communication and more about emotional integrity. Allowing words to reflect understanding developed through silence. I also noticed how expression demands responsibility. Words, once shared, shape perception and influence emotions beyond personal intention. This awareness encouraged me to approach communication with care rather than urgency. I began choosing language that reflected reflection, allowing thoughts to unfold gradually instead of appearing fully formed. This approach felt slower, but it preserved authenticity by preventing ideas from being simplified to meet expectations. I started recognizing that meaningful expression resembles storytelling more than explanation, inviting others into understanding rather than delivering conclusions that discourage curiosity. That shift transformed conversations into shared exploration rather than one-directional communication. As I embraced this new relationship with expression, I began reflecting on how courage evolves through stages. Initially, courage appears as endurance, allowing individuals to remain steady through difficulty. Later, it becomes reflection, guiding people toward clarity through silence. Eventually, courage transforms into expression, encouraging individuals to share truths shaped through patience and introspection. Recognizing that progression helped me understand that courage is not a single action or moment, but a continuous process shaped by experience, observation, and emotional growth. Each stage requires different strengths, yet all remain connected through authenticity and self-awareness. During one meaningful conversation, someone asked me why certain truths take years to express. The question stayed with me long after the discussion ended. I realized that some insights require time because they are connected to identity rather than opinion. Opinions can change quickly, influenced by new information or perspective. Identity evolves more slowly, shaped through experiences that test values repeatedly. Expressing identity-based truths requires confidence built through lived understanding rather than intellectual agreement. That realization helped me respect the timeline of personal growth, recognizing that delayed expression often reflects depth rather than avoidance or fear. While exploring this realization, I noticed how expression also deepens relationships. When people communicate from authenticity rather than performance, conversations gain emotional depth that superficial dialogue cannot achieve. I experienced moments where sharing honest reflections created connections, stronger than years of polite interaction ever could. Those moments reinforced my belief that authenticity invites trust, even when it introduces vulnerability. People sense sincerity instinctively, often responding with openness of their own. This exchange of honesty forms connections grounded in understanding rather than convenience, strengthening relationships in ways that remain meaningful over time. Still, expression carries risks that cannot be ignored. Not every environment welcomes vulnerability, and not every listener understands authenticity immediately. I encountered situations where honesty was met with skepticism or misinterpretation. Those experiences tested my commitment to authentic expression, tempting me to return to protective silence. Yet I also noticed that retreating from authenticity created internal conflict, disconnecting expression from identity. Over time, I learned that courage involves accepting that authenticity may not always produce comfort or approval. Instead, it produces alignment, allowing individuals to live in harmony with their understanding rather than adjusting constantly to external acceptance. As these experiences shaped my perspective, I began noticing how expression influences legacy. Achievements and accomplishments often define public recognition, but authenticity shapes emotional impact. People may remember what someone created, but they remember how that creation made them feel even longer. Expression allows values and insights to extend beyond personal experience, influencing others through shared understanding. Recognizing this expanded my appreciation for communication as more than conversation. It became a way to contribute clarity and reflection into spaces often dominated by noise and urgency, offering presence where distraction frequently prevails. Now, as I reflect on the transition from silence to expression, I sense another question emerging, one that feels deeper and more enduring than the others. If courage leads from endurance to reflection to expression, what remains after expression is shared? What happens when truth exists openly, no longer protected by silence, no longer hidden within private understanding? That question suggests that courage may continue evolving beyond expression, possibly shaping influence, purpose, and legacy in ways not immediately visible. And as I begin exploring that possibility, I sense that the final stage of this reflection may reveal how courage ultimately transforms not just the individual, but the lives they quietly touch. Influence often reveals itself long after words are spoken and decisions are made. As I began reflecting on what follows expression, I noticed how courage quietly extends beyond personal transformation. It begins shaping environments, relationships, and perspectives in ways that rarely attract immediate recognition. When truth is expressed with patience and sincerity, it carries emotional resonance that continues influencing people quietly. I started realizing that courage does not end when someone speaks honestly. Instead, it begins creating ripples that travel through conversations, memories, and decisions, shaping others in ways they may never trace directly back to its origin. Yet still, there were moments when I witnessed this ripple effect unfold in subtle but undeniable ways. Someone would share a personal realization, and weeks later, another individual would approach challenges with unexpected calm or openness. Those changes rarely appeared connected on the surface, yet emotional influence often moves invisibly, passing through observation rather than instruction. Watching those patterns deepened my respect for authenticity as a form of quiet leadership. Leadership, I discovered, does not always require authority or visibility. Sometimes it exists through consistency of character, guiding others through example rather than direction, offering stability that encourages. Reflection without demanding imitation or agreement. This realization encouraged me to examine how purpose evolves once authenticity becomes integrated into daily behavior. Many people associate purpose with achievements or measurable contributions, yet I began sensing a deeper layer. Purpose can also exist through emotional presence, through the ability to create environments where honesty feels safe and reflection feels welcomed. I noticed how individuals who embody authenticity often influence collective thinking without intentionally seeking influence. Their behavior normalizes vulnerability, patience, and thoughtful decision-making, allowing others to explore similar qualities within themselves. That kind of influence spreads gradually, shaping cultures and relationships through quiet consistency rather than visible authority or recognition. While exploring this understanding, I began reflecting on legacy from a different perspective. Legacy is often discussed in terms of accomplishments, innovations, or public recognition. Yet, emotional legacy may hold equal, if not greater, significance. Emotional legacy forms through the impressions people leave in others' understanding of courage, trust, and authenticity. I started remembering individuals whose achievements I barely recall, yet whose emotional presence shaped my thinking permanently. Their calm resilience and thoughtful communication influenced my decisions long after our interactions ended. That recognition shifted how I measured meaningful impact, suggesting that legacy often grows strongest through emotional clarity rather than public visibility or historical record. As these reflections deepened, I noticed how courage eventually transforms into responsibility. Once someone recognizes their influence, even subtle influence, they begin understanding that authenticity carries weight beyond personal alignment. Words and actions shape emotional landscapes, influencing how others perceive vulnerability, strength, and honesty. This awareness encouraged me to approach communication with deeper intentionality, recognizing that clarity offered through authenticity can provide reassurance during uncertainty. Responsibility, I learned, does not require perfection. It requires awareness, humility, and willingness to remain consistent with values even when circumstances challenge those commitments, or test emotional stability through misunderstanding or external pressure. During one particularly reflective evening, I considered how courage ultimately reshapes identity over time. The individual who learns endurance becomes capable of patience. The individual who embraces reflection develops clarity. The individual who expresses authenticity cultivates influence. Together, these transformations form a version of identity grounded in self-awareness rather than external validation. I realized that courage is not something people possess permanently. It is something they practice continuously, evolving through experiences that test resilience and understanding repeatedly. Each stage refines emotional maturity, creating stability that supports both personal growth and the growth of those influenced by presence and behavior. Yet as identity evolves through courage, another subtle transformation occurs. Fear begins changing its role. Instead of functioning as an obstacle, it becomes a reminder of responsibility and care. I noticed how individuals who accept fear calmly often demonstrate deeper compassion toward others facing uncertainty. Their experiences create empathy that allows them to guide without judgment, offering reassurance without minimizing struggle. This emotional sensitivity strengthens influence by connecting understanding with authenticity. Observing that transformation helped me realize that courage, when developed through reflection and expression, naturally expands into empathy, shaping leadership and relationships with emotional intelligence and genuine care. I also began noticing how courage encouraged patience with timing. Many people feel pressured to resolve questions quickly, believing clarity must arrive immediately to remain valuable. Yet through my reflections, I recognized how some truths reveal themselves only through lived experience. Timing shapes understanding, allowing insights to develop naturally rather than being forced prematurely. Courage, therefore, includes trusting the pace of personal and emotional growth. That trust allows individuals to remain open to evolving perspectives, preventing identity from becoming rigid or defensive. Observing this taught me that patience is not passive. It is an active partnership with growth and awareness over time. Now, as I revisit the memory that began this reflection, the quiet courage I witnessed years ago, I finally understand why it stayed with me so deeply. It represented a complete cycle of strength, endurance through uncertainty, reflection through silence, expression through authenticity, influence through emotional presence. That cycle continues shaping my decisions, conversations, and understanding of leadership and connection. It reminds me that courage is rarely dramatic, rarely announced, and rarely recognized immediately. Instead, it unfolds quietly, shaping lives through moments of patience, honesty, and trust that often go unnoticed but remain profoundly transformative for those who experience them. And perhaps, as you listen quietly now, you may recognize moments in your own life where courage has appeared without applause or recognition. Moments where you remained steady when explanation felt unnecessary. Moments where you protected truth until it became strong enough to speak. Those moments carry extraordinary meaning, even if they seem ordinary while they unfold. Courage rarely asks for attention. It simply asks for presence. And when presence is honored consistently, it begins changing everything quietly, not only within the individual, but within every life touched by their authenticity, patience, and unwavering emotional clarity over time.